Hey everyone, I am here to talk to you today about my Mother's Day market recap and break down the real numbers for you. Okay, so to break down the numbers for you, I paid $15 just to apply for the show. And then once I got in, it was a $100 fee to be in the show. I had a 10 by 10 space outside. There was actually, I think, maybe like an $80 fee for being in they had this like covered walkway area that you could be in, but your space was smaller. And I wanted to test out my new booth setup, which I will try to put a little picture of it here or a video inside a video so you can see what I'm doing, or maybe I'll just cut to it and keep talking. But so I wanted to try out my new tent and my new setup outside at a smaller show to kind of see what it would be like before I had to drag everything like across a park or something. I'm in the Kalamazoo Art Fair in a couple weeks, and that one I have to walk from like a road and tote all my things in. So I kind of wanted to try out my tent setup at this place and get used to that before I went for one of the big shows. So that's the breakdown of that. The other thing is this show did require a $50 insurance plan that I got through Act Insurance. This and one other show are the only ones that require that insurance fee. So I've never had to do that for anyone else, but I guess it is a good idea to have in case somebody gets hurt in your booth or something happens where you damage the property of, say, I was at the downtown market. So that insurance would cover that. I'm not 100% sure what else it would cover. I don't think it will cover anything like wind damage to your own product. I think it's more you damaging other things. So that's the breakdown of that. The show did go from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. and the setup started at 7 a.m. So I was there. Luckily, my husband was able to come help me after he dropped the kids off, but we were there from 7 in the morning until 8:30 at night or so. And then I dropped some of my stuff off at a storage unit, so I didn't even get home until like 9:30. So it was a really long day and it was super exhausting, but I did make about $1,100. Total, I made $1,145. So I will break that down next. So this show was not as good as my guild show, which I think is fine. My mom called it a good filler show. The guild show, I think people come and they buy pottery and they know what to expect from pottery. It is expensive. And I'm going to break down some of the costs of those things as well, some of my best sellers and stuff. And I actually have found that it doesn't cost a lot of money to make it, but it takes a lot of time to make it. So that's the bigger part. But anyway, back to the numbers. Okay. Square app, the Cash app, is what I use for charging people with credit cards. I made $823.69 on there. Their fees were $25.37. On Venmo, I made $95, and in cash, I made about $225. And the cash was mostly for my little, not the mommy pots, the magnet vases. So these little teeny tiny guys, people would bring cash mostly for these little guys. And I'll break down those costs as well. So if you use Square, it will show you how many transactions you had, what was your best sellers. If you go through and categorize, like I add small, medium, large mugs, espresso cups, tumblers, I go through and I put all of that in there so that at the end of the show, it can tell me what my best sellers were and basically where my profits were and what I should make more of. So from the Square app, it says I made 26 sales and my average sale was about $36.41. Now on there, my best sellers were mugs, which I sell for $40 a piece. And I made them all about this size. So they're pretty big. I mean, if you can see my hand, they're pretty good size. They have a little thumb thing, $40. Not bad for a pottery mug, and some of them are more detailed with decoration. I have some with like peaches on the outside and some with eggs on the outside. And the eggs and peaches one were kind of like the best ones, so I'm making a batch of those for my next show because those sold pretty quickly. Yeah, so that was the breakdown for the revenue part, I was, again, kind of shocked that people were spending more cash than I was expecting. And Venmo, there were not very many transactions with Venmo, maybe like 7, I think. So Square was the best. I have a tap reader, and I love that. It's really easy. Okay, next we will talk about the cost and the breakdown of each piece, not necessarily each piece, but each of my bestsellers. Okay, I will say that I went through and broke down some of the costs for me and the clay that I usually use. So what I've been using the most lately is Standards 112, which is a speckled clay, and it costs me 77 cents a pound. So I went through and kind of did the math for my 1 pound, 8 ounce, so 1.5 pound mug makes about this big. I would say this is probably like 14 to 16 ounces would be my guess. I haven't measured these ones exactly, but that's about what that makes for me. They cost me about $3.09 to make. Now that includes the clay, and I guesstimated the glaze and the cost of the glaze and how much I actually used on those. And I also added in my kiln costs. If you want to know more about my kiln breakdown costs, leave me a message in the comments. It takes about $6 for a bisque load-ish and $8-ish for a glaze load. Now, depending on the time of year and how packed the kiln is, that can kind of vary as well. So I did add on, I think what I saw, I'll have to go back and look, and maybe I can write it up here. Like, I added on for each item. I broke down my kiln space and how many items I can generally fit, and that's how I got that cost. But anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. So large mugs cost me about $3.09 to make, and I sell them for $40 a piece. So that's $36.91 profit per mug. Now that seems like a lot, but then I'm going to talk about how long it takes me to make each mug as well. So like I said before, it's not quite as costly as I thought it was going to be, but it really is the amount of time that I put into them and how many I can make in the amount of time I had between shows. So the other thing I have are my tiny magnet vases, which don't cost very much to make either, but people are still obsessed with these. I got dog hair all over that one. I made 75 of these in my last video on my little tiny Beaver pottery wheel. And my mom was here this past week. That's why I didn't get a video out last week. And she helped me decorate them all so that I can get them back into circulation. And I had a few of my social media people reach out and ask if they could buy them ahead of time. So I have already sold like 10 of these, maybe more, even before my show. So these are great. And they cost me 62 cents to make, and that includes the magnet. I can link in the description my magnets and what I use to attach them with. And they're super strong. I sell these for $20, so that is a $19.38 profit, which is a lot, but the decoration takes a long time. And honestly, throwing these on the wheel, it's kind of a big learning curve. So if you go back to my last video, you can see me making these. I have made some mini ribs so that you can get this little ripple effect much easier than using just a tool to kind of bump it out. I am selling those on my website, so I can leave a link to those as well if you want to try using these, as well as the pottery wheel that I used to make these. So these were a big hit, and they're kind of fun to make. They do take a while to decorate. It took my mom and I a whole day to paint and glaze 75 of them. So it does take a while. The other thing is I make tumblers, so just like mugs without handles, and I sell those for $35. So the profit on those is about $32.29. Now those don't sell as well as a mug. I think people just enjoy the handles. So I might be going down on price on those because I only sold a couple of them. Maybe $35 is just too much, and maybe I should go down to $25. So I think that's my next plan. The show I'm in next is there's a lot of vendors, but I've heard from other vendors who've done it previously that it's not the best show in the whole world. So I might just go down to 25 on those and see if they sell or not. So even with the cost of the clay and everything, the profit margins look really good, but it's really the time it takes to make everything that is kind of the kicker. Now, next I went through and I thought about how long does it take me to make a mug? So does that time I take make up for how much I'm asking for the mug? And I think it does. And I make mugs a lot, so that's kind of my go-to, what I'm gonna use to break this down. So I have my handy dandy sheet here, what I've been keeping track. So it takes me about 10 minutes to throw a mug. So just to make the body of the mug, I've gotten it down to maybe 6 minutes sometimes. And if I'm on a roll, like if I'm really getting into it and can get in that zone, I can throw a mug in like 4 minutes, but not often. So 10 minutes to throw, another 10 to trim the mug, so to make it that correct shape and give it this little foot on the bottom. That takes another 10 minutes, and to add the stamp. And then, so then you have to pull the handle. That takes a while, and add the little thumb rests, which everyone loves. People actually are avoiding my mugs that I don't have those thumb rests on. So now I'm doing that from now on. It takes about 5 minutes to pull a handle, and then 10 minutes to attach, because you have to do a lot of things so that it doesn't crack. You really have to work on that part, and that takes forever, but obviously worth it. And then depending on what you want to do on the outside, it takes 10 to 15 minutes to glaze each mug. And even with my patterned mugs, say my egg mugs or my peach mugs, those will take even longer because you have to do 3 coats of glaze. I'm sure my pottery people know what I'm talking about, but it takes an extra long time to glaze them. So that is just literally making the mug. Now, if you were to add them online, you have to add another like 15 minutes to take photos, edit photos, add in your descriptions, your SEOs, and a listing like you have to make for each mug. So it literally takes forever. So minus the listing, if you're selling online, that's 40 minutes per mug. And that's not including like packing it up or taking it out for the market that you're going to be at. So that's the cost, or the breakdown of per mug. So if I make a set of, usually I do like 20 mugs at a time. You can imagine you spend 40 minutes per mug. It's just like forever. So I think $40 is acceptable for a mug. And I think competition wise, like seeing another potter down the way, their mugs are also in the same range. So I was told by other vendors in this last show that my prices were very good, meaning that they thought they were too low. I had a woman from Muskegon who owned a little shop buy a bunch of these little pins, which I have just marketed on my business card for $7. It's got 2 little pins. This one's a little bigger, so I did for $10, but she went through and bought like 20 of these for her shop in Muskegon. So that was kind of fun because they turned out so cute. And a few people grabbed them, but not very many. And I have these smaller ones and earrings as well, exactly on the same card. Oh, and here's an example of that mommy pot size. So mommy pot versus magnet pot. Cute. Now I do want to show you all of the things that I just showed you together, because I found that when you make, sorry, this is probably going to be really loud in my microphone. When you make things that match as a set, it's easier to draw people in. So like I had all of these mugs. I had maybe 6 of these all together in one section. And then on my tables, I had these in little baskets, like wicker baskets on top of my purple tablecloth, as well as these in a little section as well. And now if you look, I tried to theme out everything so that it looks like my whole booth is a collection. Like you can tell it's me from a distance. And so one of the things that I found was buying some nice tablecloths that were the stretchy ones that go over the legs that were nice and bright. I added a couple really fun tablecloths. I'll try to show you a video here. I took lots of video and pictures, so I'm going to try to smush them all together in this video so you can see. But I had a lot of vendors come up to me and talk to me for a while, and were just shocked that this was only my second show of the year and my fourth overall show ever, because my booth looked so put together. So that was a really nice compliment that people gave me. They thought I was doing shows for years because everything was all cohesive. And so I think that made a big difference in selling things. So if you're going to be a vendor at any show, indoor or outdoor, I think it's important to market yourself in a way that people will remember you. And at the Potter's Guild show, I think I shared that I was one of the only booths that was like really nice and bright. So you have to think about how you can stand out, and that will help sell your things as well. One other thing that I did remember to bring was my $100, if you spend $100, you get a free tote. So I got to give one of those out. Actually, I had my 10-year-old there helping me for some of the time too. But he more just wanted to buy all of the things from the other vendors. So that was fun. But we got to give out a $100 free tote. So that was fun. And yeah, like I said, it was really a fun show. It was really long. It was a long day, but we had a fun time, and especially because I got to make some connections with the people who were behind me, who are going to be in the next show that I'm going to. So it'll be fun to kind of say hi and then compare, how'd you do at the last show versus this show? Do you think you'll do it again next year? Do you have any suggestions for the next shows that I should do? So that was a great little, I don't know, blip of information that you can get from your friends. So my question is for myself, will I want to do this again next year? And I'm not sure. $1,100, is that worth it? And I saw your guys' feedback on the posts, and I think you would say that, yeah, it is worth it, but it was such a long day. It was convenient because we had family there that can help us with the kids. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to, like I said, this is only my second show. I'm going to compare them to the rest of the shows I have throughout the year. And then I think for next year, I'll talk to some more people throughout my shows and write down ones that I think maybe will be better. But overall, I had fun. I learned a lot. I learned how to set up my tent, and I got to make some new connections. So I think overall it was a good experience, and I'll bring you along for my next show. Thanks. Bye.